bills that would have been pro-consumer, and yet that's what he ran on. He really would not have been nominated had he not been the initial candidate that says, I'm against this war in Iraq. And because the independents wouldn't have voted for him, and that's really what swung the vote. And today, 38% of all voters are independent. They exceed both Republican and Democrat. And frequently those independents were once hardwired Democrats or Republicans, but they saw that the parties have been compromised. So now we've got a man in office who is put all of his issues on this health care, and I'm thinking, why doesn't he go back to his original promise on health care? He had originally, when he was originally at the beginning of his career, said he was for universal coverage. Well, I believe that we should have universal coverage. I believe that we have more than enough resources to do it without creating excessive taxation, but there has been compromise after compromise. Now the whole idea is just to pass any kind of health care, and I'm saying if they take that notion, any bill is better than no bill, then you're right back to where the corporate interest, because the bill would mandate that you must have insurance or you'll be penalized, and that means that the very people selling the insurance today, making astronomical profits, will be the ultimate winners. There'll be nothing in this bill that will prevent any disease, nothing that will give a better way of approaching disease, nothing that will increase the quality of care and attention between the physician, nurse, and the patient. And therefore, if we're terrible with our health care today, as we are 47th in the world on one level, 39th on the other, and the closest I could come in the analysis was 33rd, that means countries all over the world are doing better with their health care than we are, then nothing's going to change no matter what is signed, except it'll be a more profit for one group. The pharmaceutical companies get more profit, the hospitals make more profit, the insurance companies make more profit. The average person won't be healthier, as if that was even a part of this whole damn bill. So lost in all this is, why are we so sick? How can we make ourselves healthier? Could you address this, please?
Well, I think the tip-off really from the beginning in terms of the healthcare debate was in the Congress was the role that the pharmaceuticals not only played in public, but also they were invited into the White House to help prepare legislation. No, the game is a terrible one in terms of the consequences for the health of the nation, but it's also typical. And the fact that Obama finally tried a week or so ago to give a statement about a health care plan indicates how really lackluster his commitment was from the beginning. Because it's easy enough to spout campaign slogans about health care and programs that will help the least advantaged and all the rest of it, but it's a very different thing when it comes down to the push and shove game of inside politics. I think it all, in a certain sense, goes back to the question of Obama himself. It seems to me that the question that's never really answered is, how did someone with no apparent resources of his own, with no organization of his own, suddenly become a candidate for president, and suddenly the big wheels in the party began to back him and turn away from Hillary and support him? I think the whole notion of Obama as some kind of independent figure, with different from the conventional politician, was so vastly an exaggeration. He was a construction. I think he is a construction of the party and of those who command the party, and with particularly those with strong ties to the interests we've talked about. So Obama, I think, is in many ways a figure who has managed by his oratorical skills to convince America that he's a fresh new voice, when in fact he's not. He is a perfect representative of the party, and it was a stroke of genius for them to propose him. But to look to him as some kind of savior for a health care program of significance, for a really radically different foreign policy, and one can go on, and I think the answer is one can't, because to think that one can is to misread the way in which individuals become candidates in this day and age. Nobody comes from the outside and manages to win the nomination of one of the major parties. It is all so carefully constructed now, so carefully operated and manipulated that the chances of that ever happening are just absolutely minuscule.
My final last 2 points, just my own particular point of view, I saw this coming. I saw one of the most vulnerable areas of the United States citizenry being the poor classes, the Latino and the African American. They're the ones who get sick first. They're the ones who have their homes taken away first. They're the ones who are out of work first fired, last hired. And so at every level, they're at the bottom strata. They are the ones that represent the largest single group of unemployed in the United States. Unemployment in the African-American youth under 18 is running at 39%. And yet, I believe that they very wisely played the race card in selecting Obama because he was a Tiger Wood candidate. You know, the black guy who will be appealing to those people that would otherwise say we don't want a black in office, the kind of the hidden racists within the United States, and we have a lot of those. And yet I believe that he has betrayed those individuals because they're the ones who are not getting any of the benefits from this current presidency. And at some point, his great oratory skills will run its course, and he will just be seen as another Ronald Reagan, just as an African American, because he's serving the corporate interests, not the people who actually elected him to office. Sooner or later, that will become apparent to a lot of people. That's my own personal opinion. Now, finally, my last question to you is, you have identified with the left for most of your life. How would you describe the left today, and where has the left taken a wrong turn, and what have been the consequences of that for the left truly being a force representing a more true democracy than that honors human rights and the rights of other nations and equality and the lessening of the gap between the haves and have-nots?
Well, I think the problem begins with the notion of the left. I think one of the great things and unfortunate things that happened in the last half of the 20th century is that the left splintered badly. There were feminists, there were environmentalists, there were people who were interested in urban renewal. You can go on and on and on. But there was no coherent notion of a left that in which these elements, all of which could empathize with each other, but which had their own agendas, with the result that the coherency that a movement needs was simply lacking. And we paid the price for that. I think the problem of having many lefts but no left is continuing to plague us. Now, it also needs redefinition badly. As I tried to point out in the book, what is important in many respects for the political agenda of the left today is to go back a bit, to try to recapture some of the importance of what we understood by constitutional constraints, what we understood by the crucial role of local governments and state governments in the scheme of things. In other words, not to be caught up in the look to the future kind of dynamic that the right and that capitalism and corporate interests are constantly drumming into our heads. The left has lacked a historical sense of what's really going on, and what, as I try to emphasize in the book, they've got to understand that democracy and democratization are constantly fighting an uphill battle, and that in order to achieve anything, they have got to get some kind of coherent unity among elements that are critical of where we're going, that are willing to commit themselves to change, but which lack some kind of unifying center of a political party or a political program that will actually give them some kind of sense of being together, of being willing to commit to something that has a chance for really transforming the status of politics in this country.
Well said. Thank you very much, sir, for being our guest today. We certainly appreciate it. My guest today, Professor Sheldon Wolin, W-O-L-I-N, in my opinion, one of our nation's greatest progressive political philosophers and theorists.